心と行動に一点の曇りなし。すべてが正義だ。ドジャーンドジャーンドジャーン、一体何のつもりなんだ。遺体はこのバレンタインのことを好いてくれ。
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
Yeah. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Welcome back. It's Too Late, number one late night show in America, not hosted by a communist. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by the number one producer in late night. It's Dave Willimowski. Dave! Dave, how are you doing?
Yeah. apparently 45 minutes ain't enough time to rebuild the whole show. So
No.
I'm gonna hope for the best.
No, yeah, the crowd wouldn't have been cheering your name right then if they know what was going to happen next. Boy, what a weekend we had this past weekend, huh?
Oh, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to get into it a little bit later in the show, but something that I've noticed a lot on the internet is a bunch of people saying that they thought it was staged.
Oh.
They thought that it was a big, elaborate photo op for Trump to help swing the election in his favor. And look, I'm not saying you're insane if you think that. What I am saying is that only one of these two things can be true, and you're going to have to pick which one it is. Either the government is comprised of the most evil, but just cold-blooded and expert assassins the world has ever seen, or the government is incompetent and stupid and can't do anything right, and everything they try to make better, they make worse. But it can't be both. You see what I'm saying? Like, it can't be both of those things. All right. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
What a quandary it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, the nation is still in shock following the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump and GOP nominee. Now, 5 days later, FBI investigators are still trying to determine the motive behind 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crook's attack. Now, listen. I might not be one of these highfalutin FBI investigators, but I think the gunman's motive was he didn't want Trump to be alive anymore.
Yeah, that sounds solid.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I'm in the wrong line of work. I should have been one of them.
Yeah.
One of them PIs with the with the trench coat and the hat, and I'd solve crime.
That guy wanted to get him out of here.
Yeah, the last thing he does, and it was. In light of recent events, President Biden has finally directed Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. What a name for such a bitch. To provide Secret Service protection to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, the move has been applauded by most people, but there's still critics that say that it's really a shame that it took a leading presidential candidate being nearly assassinated to finally make it happen. But nearly assassinated, you say? Yeah. I'm sorry. Oh, can you pull that picture back up? Yeah. If you saw those same guys in Kentucky with long hair and Bud Light, you would say they were inbred. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh my God.
Tell me I'm wrong. All right.
A little goofy.
The news really blew me away.
Oh.
Yeah, you see where this is going? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, it's still going?
It sure took them long enough to pull the trigger.
Okay. Yeah, that was good.
It was really a no-brainer.
Oh, that's a little...
What, are these not landing? All right. Next time I'll try to come up with higher caliber puns. All right, moving on. In other news, Donald Trump has finally announced his vice presidential pick, tapping Ohio Senator JD Vance as his new running mate. Do we have a picture of JD Vance?
Yeah. Here.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Nice watch.
I like that guy.
Yeah. Anti-war voters are optimistic as Vance has gone on record as saying, quote, American taxpayer dollars shouldn't be going to corrupt foreign governments like Ukraine. Instead, they should all be going to Israel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is he Jewish?
He is now. What a good little goy. With the stage set for not only the next presidential debate in September, but also, the vice presidential debates between JD Vance and Kamala Harris. I know. President Joe Biden wasted no time in saying that his running mate was up to the task. Take a look at this.
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she's not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
I didn't see that.
Anyway, but I'll tell you what, not everyone is thrilled about Vance's ascension. It was reported the South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem was such a wreck, she did the only thing she could do to calm her nerves. Shoot another dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, well, speaking of shooting dogs, let me tell you about tonight's. Oh my God, is coffee okay for dogs to eat? Like, I know they can't eat chocolate, right? That makes them.
Oh,
what about coffee?
yeah, I don't know. I never looked into it. It never occurred to me.
It says that this is chocolate, smoky, clean with a floral hint. Would this kill it, Steve? Steve, would this kill a dog? Steve here. All right, anyway, we'll get back to you on that, guys. Let me tell you about tonight's sponsor, which is Fox & Sons Coffee, which you can... That's not Fox & Sons Coffee. What the hell? You really love that dog, don't you? Not anymore, you don't. That's Fox & Sons Coffee, which you can find at foxandsons.com. If you use promo code ITL, you get 18% off orders of $34.99 or more. Shipping's free on orders of $40 or more. You can visit them online at foxandsons.com. I actually have, check this out, I have a bag of this right here. This is the Den Blend 2 Electric Boogaloo that is not fit for dog consumption. Is
that what we learned?
That's probably fine.
Yeah.
What about cats? I mean, I'm more of a cat person myself.
Yeah, you would be. I don't know.
You think this episode of All Ones is the one for you to get? You know?
You're probably right.
Yeah. Like, I keep on hitting the buttons thinking, like, what do I even need Dave for, you know? It's about time for you to take the long walk. Sorry. Guys, we're going to be back with the meme of the week and the viewer mail right after this commercial break. Good boy. Did you see any of the memes and stuff about the diverse Secret Service agents that were there with Trump?
How could you not?
Yeah, right.
Not
like I saw some people saying that it doesn't, like, Trump's a big guy, and so it doesn't make sense to have a Secret Service agent that's supposed to shield his body with their body be a smaller person than the person they're supposed to be shielding. And I thought, I don't know, did you see the hips on that woman? I don't. Like a bunch
lower
of people
body
were
strength.
making memes of her like going back to the kitchen to make sandwiches. And I'm like, yeah, but would the sandwich get to you? You know? All right. Hey, Dave,
Yes, Alan.
what time is it?
It's time for meme of the week.
I guess I have to hit this button too, since somebody, you know.
Should probably start guessing.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
I love that guy. He hadn't been on the show in a while.
Yeah,
we bring him
good to have
back. But we do have a bonus meme. Check out the bonus meme.
Oh, right.
I like how everybody in Applebee's cheers for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You put on a show.
How are we doing on time? We doing good? Oh, look at that. We're doing really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, because A, you weren't even watching the time, and B, you don't know what good time is.
Those are both correct. I can't even see my camera. What's that? Oh, 11 minutes. That's pretty good.
Wonder what Blake's up to. You think I'm going to edit this clip down? I'm never going to. Just FYI. All right. Well, I have to pull up the viewer mail post since I had to close it earlier, since I had to run my own show.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me go grab the viewer mail really quick. I also want to point out, just as a totally random side note, the viewer mail questions are kind of like in where the last one submitted is the first one at the top. Except
that's
for
fun.
some reason, Andrew Avery's is always at the top. And I want to figure out how he did that. Do you know how to do that?
No.
Okay, well, anyway, he knows how to do that. Andrew Avery writes, Dear Alan and Dave, would you sell your vacuum cleaner if it was just gathering dust?
Oh.
That
Yeah.
sounds really familiar. Like, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial and say that Andrew has used that one before, but it sounds really familiar to me.
Oh.
So either I'm having deja vu or he's...
Yeah, I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't. God forbid you at least just play along, you know, like, you know what I'm
Did we ever
saying?
get Dave Cam working on this? I don't think we did.
I don't know. I mean, it should be the same Dave Cam from the other scenes. I wonder what Sherry's up to. Yeah.
Afraid to change it.
Justin left a bunch of political ramblings, so we're going to skip those. Celeste Annis writes, Dear Alan and Dave, what is your favorite board or card game? Dave, what's your favorite board and or card game?
I guess it'd just be Monopoly, I guess.
Oh my
fun.
God. No, it's not.
I'm not into games. I don't like games. I don't even like
No,
Monopoly.
that's
but
bullshit.
I guess that'd be my favorite.
You're not into games. Car Mechanic Simulator. Total hours played 2,784.
We got like 150.
All right, that's also bullshit. I mean, if you're gonna play that kind of game, I always thought Life was better than Monopoly.
Oh, Life was fun. Yeah,
Because part of the fun is that when stuff happens in the game of life, you're like, oh yeah, no, that's accurate. That's gonna happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not talking
yeah.
about the good things, only the bad things.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Brian Johnson writes, Dear Alan and Dave, if you were living in the Fallout universe, what is the first thing you would do after leaving the vault? You've seen the Fallout show, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. I've seen the show and I've played some of the games.
Okay.
I'm gonna beat one.
So what's the first thing you would do after leaving the vault?
Gosh, I can't even see me leaving the vault.
Yeah, right? The answer is go back in. Are you kidding me?
That's pretty much it.
There's people
I
up
don't
there
wanna be out
eating
there.
each other.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'll take my chances in the vault.
Yeah. I don't know, but see, all the vaults were like evil, mad scientist experiments. And so it's like, if you're leaving the vault because staying in there means like you're going to die, then what do you do after you leave the vault?
I don't know. I go just set up shop somewhere by myself and start setting up defenses.
Just become a dirt farmer.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you got to interact. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would go to Vegas. That's where I would go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw online somewhere where there are people that actually save bottle caps because they've seen Fallout and they think, oh yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to save my bottle caps.
Oh, they'll be ready. They'll be ready. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be ready to get like the police called on them. Yeah, because they're the weird hermit lives down the street and hoarding garbage in his house. Matt Lacey writes, Dear Alan and Dave, how many times have you had a semi-tire blow up next to you on the highway? Did you power through or slow down to avoid shrapnel? That's awfully specific question. You notice that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have been on the road when there was road debris. So
yeah,
I think
I've seen it.
So I think the question is that if you can't just avoid it entirely, do you power through it or do you slow down?
Mm.
And the answer obviously is you just power through it.
See what happens.
Yeah, just see what happens. And finally, Aaron Kittner writes, Dear Anna Dave, my internet is currently out. What are some things I can do while I wait on it to be fixed? How did he write that tweet?
Oh.
And how is he going to hear the answer?
Mm-hmm.
There's more questions
send him a
than
letter.
answers with Aaron's tweet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But if the internet is ever out, I just think thoughts.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty good.
I actively avoid that. Yeah.
Well, that's all the viewer mail we have because people really ditched the viewer mail this week.
Oh man,
That's a shame. Yeah, people are gonna have to get their act together. Like Dave puts easily 30 minutes of effort into the show per month. The least you
I got
guys could
this.
do is do the viewer mail.
I
All
did
right.
the transition, right?
No, you didn't do jack. You did nothing.
Oh, man.
You did the monologue, and then we're just
Yeah. Well, then it was showtime.
yeah. And then you kept saying, "Yeah, we're out of time," and I'm looking. It's like it's 2:30 in the afternoon.
No. You don't
All right, guys,
understand.
we're gonna be back with the director of the Libertarian Institute, Scott Horton,
Ooh.
right after this commercial break. Oh boy.
Stay away from women. All they want from you is your man juice. Now, if you get any urges that you can't suppress with hard liquor, use this.
Are you a faggot? Do you hate vagina?
Everything I'm about to say is satire, irony, pre and post irony in Minecraft.
I'm coming to kill you in Los Angeles at your house. Or in the ring. No, in real life.
Esa droga poderosa que circula en la ciudad y los dueños de la plaza no la pudieron parar.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Our guest this evening is, of course, the director of the Libertarian Institute, which, ladies and gentlemen, it's fundraising season. It is fundraising season at the Libertarian Institute. You got to go to libertarianinstitute.org/donate. Get out your Sears card, type in 999-999-99, hit enter, so just see what happens. You never know. Just see what happens. I'll have you know, we've had 9, it's to my knowledge, we've had 9 guests from the Libertarian Institute on this show. So since the Libertarian Institute basically feeds me all of my guests, the least we can do is try to raise them some money. So Scott Horton, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy to be here.
Well, Scott, obviously not a whole lot has happened in the news, especially this past weekend on Saturday afternoon, give or take a little bit. But obviously, that's what everybody's talking about, so I feel compelled to talk a little bit about it. But there was one thing I wanted to start off with you. Now, I was born in 1985, so a schmuck like me wasn't around to see Ronald Reagan get shot. But there was this tweet by Martyr Made here that said, the leading presidential candidate just got shot, but almost no one is surprised, and everyone was expecting something like this to happen. Which I sort of saw that kind of feeling, that mood going around a lot of everyone saying, oh, it's the incendiary rhetoric, and oh, no one's surprised this is going to happen because there's going to be political violence. And it kind of made me wonder, I want to talk to somebody that has a little bit more historical perspective than me. And that's not my nice way of trying to call you old, by the way. I mean literal historical perspective. But when there have been other incidents like this in the past, or like just using Reagan as an example, because everybody wants to use that example, were people saying the same things then? Like, were people, when Reagan got shot, did everyone say, oh, well, we all knew this was going to happen. It's because of all that incendiary rhetoric?
Young man, I was 4 years old. He got shot in 1981, just a few months after being sworn in. It's one of my earliest memories is his inauguration. But no, I don't remember the discussion on the Sunday morning news shows about it.
Well, the reason I bring it up is that, of course, obviously, because everything's political, right? So everyone on the right wing is saying, oh, well, of course, this is the left wing's fault. The left wing as an entire body politic is to blame because this psychopath got up on a roof, apparently with no one and everyone seeing him all at the same time, and shot a presidential candidate. And so, of course, they're to blame. It's because of the incendiary. No individual is to blame, of course. It's everyone is to blame. For the words that they say. But it just makes me think, is that where we are in politics? Like, are we in a place where from now on, whenever any psycho does anything, it's going to be, well, our political opponents are ultimately to blame because that person wouldn't have done that thing unless they were...
I don't know about ultimately, but no, I mean, I think that's part of it. Look, they are unreasonably afraid of Donald Trump, and I guess just resentful of the fact that he was supposed to just be the heel, the jabroni in the skit, and then Hillary was going to get in there. Mm-hmm. And then he wasn't ever supposed to be the president and, say all this stuff right to their face about how much everybody hates him and all this stuff. And so they're just so resentful of him, they'll go to any length to discredit him. I mean, they called him a Russian agent and an illegitimate president. Essentially, the government itself denied the president his 4-year presidency when he won it before. And I think Daryl is right in that tweet. Were you surprised? I was slightly shocked. I was not surprised to find out somebody took a shot at the guy. And like, even Joe Biden, and look, I don't think that this is true for the average Democrat campaign, that you have the president, like, if you went with Obama in 12 or Clinton in 96 running for re-election, they didn't say that their opponent, that Romney won or Bob Dole won, that this is the end of America. It's the end of democracy forever. He's going to abolish the FBI and replace it with the white supremacists. And he's going to, give Russia all our nuclear weapons and fucking all of this stuff. They're just to the nth degree. They have this insane caricature of this guy, as they put it. Democracy itself is on the ballot. This is the last chance to save regular elections in America. If Biden doesn't win this one, we'll never have elections again because we'll live in a right-wing Nazi fascist dictatorship. And in fact, someone was showing, whatever. There's a million of them. And Biden himself says this all the time. So, I don't know. People hated George Bush a lot too. But you didn't have, John Kerry, his opponent, saying if this guy wins re-election, it's going to be the end of the country forever. I don't know. Anyway, they pushed that stuff very hard on Trump, as you know. And so I think that must have been part of the thinking of the kid that took the shots, right? Part of his understanding. I saw in the comments on a thing earlier, this kid was 20. He's been hearing this stuff about Trump as Hitler since he was 12. This is basically, he was raised on a very different Trump than me, or at least, the media caricature of Trump. is, when I was a kid, Trump was just the guy with the big tits, fake tits, girlfriend, and the Ferrari Testarossa. Like just.
Well, I mean, okay, so you used an interesting phrase there at the start of that. You had said that they're unreasonably afraid of Donald Trump. Because, of course, obviously it's an interesting situation where we've already had 4 years of Trump. So everybody thinks that consequentially, if Trump is in office, and that is the end of America. And, of course, you and I would ask, well, if Trump was going to drain the swamp, why didn't he do it 4 years ago? We would ask the same question to them. It's like, well, if Trump was going to put you all on cattle cars and send you to concentration camps, why didn't he do that 4 years ago?
Right. Exactly. I mean, the whole thing has always been completely ridiculous. The way that they portrayed him. And what's funny is they've given up on all that now, kind of. I mean, Biden has said, they're going to tone down the rhetoric about democracy being on the ballot. Well, do they believe that or not? I guess they don't actually believe that. They obviously have completely abandoned all their Russia narratives. It's amazing, isn't it, the way the Democrats and the media have their messaging just so in sync. It's very rare you hear anybody utter anything about like, hey, after all, this is Vladimir Putin's agent we're talking about here. They're not even going to try to push that, even though now the stakes are way higher. We're in the middle of this proxy war with Russia right now. They're like concerned about it over at the Atlantic that, oh no, JD Vance is going to help Trump end the war over there, some kind of thing. But in the major media, they're not demonizing him as a Russian spy anymore. And, I don't know if you saw this, it was the Axios. Who knows if this is true? It's kind of Israeli media. I don't know. But they had a senior House Democrat source said, we've all just resigned ourselves now to a second Trump.
I did. I saw that. Yeah.
They just know that Biden can't win. Kamala Harris can't win. They can't parachute. They don't have a hero to parachute in there to do it. Gretchen Whitmer is going to take on Donald Trump, the most famous man who ever lived. Yeah, right. She is. Gavin Newsom, the mayor of Cracktown, who's made California the place where, like the nicest place to live in the world, where people all want to go from all over the world, has made people flee there by the hundreds of thousands in net loss, because he's just run the thing into the ground, had the most totalitarian lockdowns, kind of tied with Michigan during COVID.
Well,
massive crime and addiction problems and homeless people everywhere. And people are afraid to go to LA because it's in San Francisco because it's dangerous outside. It's nuts out there.
Well, I didn't have this in my notes, but since you brought it up, let's talk about this for a second. So I have told people for years at this point, literally, that Joe Biden's going to be on the ballot. When everybody was saying, oh, look at his dementia and oh, look at his speech. I mean, like more recently, it's, oh, look how bad his speaking engagements and debate performance was. But even long before now, there was people saying, oh, look what age he's going to be in another 4 years, cognitive decline, blah, 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 blah. And I understand that there's sort of been this media narrative more recently of, oh, the donors are pulling the money and, oh, they're having backroom deals trying to decide who the successor is going to be. I have said all along, and I maintain to this day, Biden is going to be on the ballot. So do you agree with that? You think they're just going to stay with Biden?
Well, I don't think they are going to stay with Biden. I think Biden is going to stay with Biden, and they can't overthrow him, really. I mean, they can pressure him a lot, but he's stubborn as hell, and he's wanted to be the president since he's a little kid. And as far as he's concerned, he's just fine. I don't usually talk about my family or whatever, but it's a relevant analogy. My dad is Biden's same age. And my dad likes to say, well, I feel exactly the same as I did when I was 50. But that's bullshit. It's just not true. Like, he's 82. He's very much not the same as he was when he was 50. I know I feel the same as I did when I was 18 or 28 or whatever, too. I tell myself, I don't know. We'll see what happens when the new ramp is done. But I understand the mindset.
Well,
if you ask Biden, he is just fine. Thank you. And by the way, and I don't know how much stock to put in all this, and I don't keep as close track as I should, but there's the Washington Post and the New York Times both have a story today about Democrats are afraid that Biden is relying on too small of a circle of advisors. That's what they're both headlines or in both papers are about today. And I didn't read the Times one, but the Post one is saying, yeah, he says that the polls are unchanged. But in fact, he's down 2 for a total loss of 4 because he was up 2 and now he's down 2. So obviously this is the most desperate situation. And I'm going, what? I actually would have thought that he'd be down by quite a bit more.
Yes. Yes.
And especially, you know, now after this guy taking a shot at Trump and everything, we'll see how it goes. But how dare the Washington Post and the New York Times and all these people leave this full jihad against this guy based on, they say the poll numbers show him to be doomed when that doesn't really seem to be the case. And of course, it's funny because they're the ones who lied for him and said that he was just fine. He's perfectly fine. And that's why they did not need to hold a primary. He is the nominee. He's the leader of the party. He's the sitting president. They didn't hold a real primary season at all, froze all of his competition out. Now they want to overthrow him in a panic, but he's really not that much dumber than he always was. Doesn't misspeak that much worse than he did before. I don't know. Like if I was a Biden voter, I don't know if I'd have been moved by all of this. He always was a bumbling nincompoop, but if you're a Biden voter, look at the other guy. You know what I mean? I don't know. So, but there is this massive concerted effort that you're talking about, which is its own separate news story in a way, that just who is running this coup d'etat? You know, I saw this thing where Glenn Greenwald had a bit about Steve Jobs' widow, who of course inherited all this money and just bought the most expensive house in all of San Francisco. That's who she is. And then she had like called this major shot on which super PAC is going to finance Biden or not and all this. So this is like the most elite wealthy people in the country are having their own little democracy to decide who should be the nominee. And it's funny because they're putting Biden in a position to make him like Trump, where he's like, the elites are trying to overthrow me, but they can't stop me and all this, which there's some truth to that. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's very interesting the way it's playing out there.
Well, it goes back to you said earlier talking about the whole, you know, Trump being literally Hitler thing, being a threat to democracy. And, you know, these people obviously don't really believe what they say. You know, the same people who say that those things obviously lived through a Trump presidency, obviously are resigning themselves to possibly living through another Trump presidency. But do you think that they're all just going to disband all their super PACs and move on with life? Or do you think they're going to be gearing up for 2028? Of course they're going to be gearing up. They know that the world's not going to come to an end.
Midterms too. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. There was one more tweet that I wanted to show you before we take a quick commercial break. So this one was from Thomas Massey, which it's great to see him back on social media after everything he's been through recently, the passing of his wife. But he had said this, talking about the FBI, the same bureau that investigated the Las Vegas shooting and the January 6 pipe bombs is now investigating the attempted assassination of Trump. It's also the same bureau that raided Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of this soon. Now, you know, Scott, I'm certainly no conspiracy theorist, but do you think the FBI is going to do a good job figuring out what happened here with the assassination attempt?
No.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, the FBI, they're the people that murdered the Branch Davidians and called it a suicide. You can't trust them. And they're the authors of the Russiagate hoax. They're the guys that framed 300 innocent, basically, you know, mostly innocent Muslims into ridiculous terrorist plots just to parade them on TV, make it look like we need them at all. They're criminals, all of them. The FBI are just absolute. Read the Durham report, the special investigation into the origins of the Russiagate hoax. And there are places where they just stonewalled him. He wasn't able to really nail Comey or the leaders and find out the conversations at the top level. But it is so clear that the leaders of the FBI conspired to frame the president for treason, or at that time, the major party nominee for president, and then president-elect, and then the sitting president of the United States. pretended to investigate him just to persecute him, in their own words, to hem him in. So, you know, after that all failed, they should have been abolished. They should have been abolished a hell of a long time ago. Harry Truman, I'm not a big fan of him, but he had said, you know, this FBI is not what it was designed to be. We don't want an American Gestapo. And that is what they are. And they're a despicable lot, all of them. And if they weren't, they would all be arresting each other for all of their various crimes, which they never do, because they're all accessories to so many multiple felonies. And you know what? I'm glad that Massey brought up the Las Vegas attack, because this is something I really need to interview this lady. Have you ever seen, Alan, the documentary that the lady did about Las Vegas and how the shootings continued all the way down the street as, you know, whoever it was is apparently fleeing on foot. They're shooting up all these different hotels for like 2 miles down the road. Mm-hmm. And she pieces all this together from all the 911 calls that came in that were eventually released. And she's not a real journalist, I don't think. She's just some lady who was like, what is going on here? And pieces together. And it's like, I think she says a couple of silly things in there where you're like, no. But it doesn't matter, because it's like 95, 98% of it is like, what is going on here? There's clearly multiple shooters in multiple locations going on through that whole thing. And they covered it up like Oklahoma City. Like, just John Doe 2, forget about that. There's no John Doe 2. It's incredible that they did. And like, quite frankly, I didn't hear much about that until I saw that video, that documentary that lady had made. I had heard people saying that, well, there must have been more to it. There were Saudis there that day, or, you know, some things that, like, I don't know, seemed somewhat suspicious, but seemed kind of inconclusive to me, and I didn't look that deep into it, you know. But I should look up this lady. I really should interview her, because she really did a great job of piecing together how there was a whole gigantic part of that story far beyond one guy shooting out of a hotel window there and with a bump stock and all that. That's not how that works.
Yes.
I'm not a real gun expert, but I know some, and they know that that's not true. And so, I mean, that is a huge one. And then the Mar-a-Lago raid and all that. Again, who in the hell these people think they are to take on, obviously at that time, the leading contender, at that time polling as the front runner ahead of the sitting president, who's, you know, running again, is virtually guaranteed to be the party's nominee this year to be the president. And they're raiding him over keeping documents at his house, where the Supreme Court, or I'm sorry, a federal appeals court judge just ruled that the special counsel's entirely unconstitutional.
Yes.
You know, after I actually had an old friend that joked that the Monica Lewinsky scandal was just a conspiracy to get rid of the independent counsel statute, because there used to be a law that created, you know, the independent counsel. Now they have the attorney general just ad-libbing this thing, and you can't do that. And so a judge just said this, you know, this whole thing was unconstitutional, and it's clearly such a, and it goes to show the mindset of the Democrats, right? That they just think that they can cheat. It never occurs to them that cheaters never win. The more they do stuff like this, the more that it generates sympathy for him. How can you sit there and continue to use the Justice Department against your major competition and on some BS offense, right? Not a crime, but keeping some papers that we all know that if he just essentially felt like it and uttered it out loud on the afternoon, or I guess the morning of January 20, like, hey, any papers that I have with me are all hereby declassified. That's it. Yeah. He's the boss of what's classified or not. He had the authority to do that. Biden had all these documents, but he didn't have the authority to declassify anything as vice president. And they said, well, and in fact, they said that he actually maybe did commit a crime, but they wouldn't be able to prosecute him because he's so obviously senile that he would just play the senile card. But anyway.
Oh yeah, that's one of those headlines that just sort of came and went through the news cycle and then just, you know, disappeared 24 hours later, is that they actually had suits saying, oh yeah, this guy's unfit to stand trial, and yet he's still running for president of the United States.
Well, Congress is actually trying to hold the attorney general in contempt because he won't turn over the audio tapes of Biden's interview, where, as reported, he confuses when his son died, when he was vice president, when he was senator, all kinds of basic facts as they're speaking. He has to be reminded when his son died and all this stuff.
Well, if there's one thing I want to say really quick before we take our commercial break, the FBI thing, I think for me is the most disappointing thing about Trump. And there's plenty of things to be disappointed about, while at the same time there's plenty of reasons to be sympathetic, because lots of evil people hate him just as much as we hate lots of evil people. It's just the fact that he, of all people, knows just how corrupt the FBI is. And yet, instead of coming out on a platform of, if I get elected, we're blowing up the FBI building, we're leaving a crater in the ground where it used to be. He's one of the guys wanting to lead a charge to build him a new facility and hire a bunch of new agents. It's like, of all people, he should know that's not the way. And yet, here we are.
Well, hopefully he's just lying.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, but maybe.
He's just sending them a message. Don't assassinate me before November, please. So.
Well, on that note, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we're going to be right back with more Scott Horton of the Libertarian Institute right after this. Tonight's show is proudly sponsored by Fox & Sons Coffee. Fans of It's Too Late use code ITL for 18% off orders of $34.99 or more. Shipping is free on orders of $40 or more. You can find them on their website, which is foxandsons.com. That's foxandsons.com. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're joined once again with Scott Horton, Libertarian Institute, libertarianinstitute.org/donate. Go in there, give them all your money. But in the meantime, Scott, there was another tweet I wanted to share with you. This was from Nick Fuentes. So trigger warning for folks at home that can't read anything Nick Fuentes says without losing their minds. But it's worth taking a read. So he said, if Trump hadn't turned his head slightly and dodged a bullet, amidst the chaos of the GOP nominating convention, the RNC would select the next president under the influence of mega donors like Bill Ackman, Miriam Adelson, Ken Griffin. Millimeters away from President Nikki Haley, swept into office by a groundswell of support against the decrepit Joe Biden after the martyrdom of Trump, which would lead to more war, and more war. I have to admit, that was actually one of the things that went through my head when I saw the shooting and him rushing off stage and everything. It's like, wow, if I had just watched him die, we would have God knows what type of just neocon swamp monster would have been the Republican nominee right after that. Could you even imagine?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they would have done about that. They may have given it to Vance as like a sop to the MAGA guys. But boy, would we be living in a different world after that. And, I don't know. I mean, right-wingers typically have jobs and, responsibilities, so that, kind of someday never comes. On the other hand, there are extremists all the way to the right who might decide that, all right, well, if it's shooting time, I guess it's on then, and that kind of thing, and follow Trump up with fighting from the other side. I don't know. I think, the country is as lucky as Trump is that he got it in the ear and not in the back of the skull there. And it's a pretty amazing thing what happened there. It's really incredible. Dave Smith, within 2 hours... Dave, he was here in Austin doing comedy, and within 2 hours, he had like a 20-minute set on it and talked about how it's the single best place on your entire body to get shot, right? Like, there's no other place better than that. Like, teenage girls get their ear pierced right there. It's cool.
Well, I had said to some folks that the only way on earth that you could ever possibly have a President Kamala Harris or a President Nikki Haley is if some old white dude died. That's pretty much the only way that was going to happen. But speaking of JD Vance, so obviously JD Vance is tapped as the vice presidential candidate behind Trump. I'm reminded of the wise words of our mutual friend Tom Woods, who says, no matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain. So I want you to take a look at this clip. Scott, I'm sure you've already seen it. Watch this.
A lot of people recognize that we need to do something with Iran, but not these weak little bombing runs. If you're going to punch the Iranians, you punch them hard, and that's what he did when he took out Soleimani.
If you're going to punch the Iranians, Scott, you got to punch them hard. That's what Trump did with Soleimani. What do you think?
What's he talking about? Not these little bombing campaigns? We didn't do a bombing campaign against Iran, and if we did, it would be a massive one. And then what's he invoke? He invokes a single strike on one guy, an assassination, a murder of a guy who was actually in Iraq in order to make peace with Saudi Arabia, which is clearly what they were trying to prevent. And it was on Benjamin Netanyahu's orders. So Vance ought to be ashamed of himself. And, you know, Arthur Bloom published on his Substack today some text messages that some guy, it's a little confusing. He doesn't explain who's who that well or whatever, but it's clear in there that Vance is saying, if America had listened to Netanyahu, we never would have invaded Iraq. What?
I'm sorry?
This guy has no idea what he's talking about. And I think he elaborates. He may be referencing that Ariel Sharon had advised Bush to hit Iran instead, which is true. It was Netanyahu and his men who wanted Iraq. Sharon did want Bush to go to Iran first, but Sharon got on board for the Iraq project anyway, of course. But it was Netanyahu who was, you know, Sharon's competition in Likud, who was closest to the Israel lobby and the neoconservatives in America. And it was that clean break agenda of David Wormser that he had written, that the American neocons, Richard Pearl and David Wormser, had written for Netanyahu back in '96, that they were implementing there. So I just wish that he would shut the hell up if he's going to say things that are just completely not true like that. Like maybe he just has no idea what Israel's role in Iraq War II was. But just to pronounce it, yeah, Israel tried to stop us. Too bad we didn't listen to him. That's not the history of Iraq War II, Mr. Vice President, dumbass.
Well, one thing that I definitely wanted to ask you is I don't know if it's just politics, if that's really the only explanation for this, but I know that there were a lot of people on my Twitter feed, a lot of people in my social circles that were saying, you know what, as far as vice presidential candidates go, JD Vance was a pretty good pick because, you know, at least he's pro crypto. You know, he's more fiscally responsible than, I guess, somebody. He's more like he has to be more fiscally responsible than the guy he's running with. He's one of these guys that at least is aware that the Fed exists and what it does. So there's at least that. But a lot of people were saying, well, he's anti-war. You know, he's anti-interventionist because look at his record on Ukraine. He doesn't want to give any money to Ukraine. He wants to end the war in Ukraine. And I guess where that leads me to the question is that even if we're giving all of that as being true, that these are the highlights of the JD Vance pick, is politics the only explanation for why there aren't really any anti-war major candidates? They may be anti-war, but they're not anti-war. So he's perfectly fine with being going after Iran, going after China. He's absolutely Israel first and Taiwan first, long before he's America first. But he is against the war in Ukraine. So what is the explanation for why you have some candidates who are anti-war but not anti-war?
Politics.
That's it? Just politics?
Yeah, sure.
They can just pin it on the other guy?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, and I don't know if Vance has tapped into this, but I guess so. You know, he's a bright enough guy. There's a strain of thought inside the foreign policy establishment that says that we should cozy up to Russia in order to focus on China. Now, the Biden administration idea was that, yes, the Russia-China combine, if not outright military alliance, is the problem. And yes, we want to focus on China. He's been a China hawk as bad as Trump this whole time. I don't care what the right-wingers say about him. They're wrong. Read antiwar.com and you'll know better. But if I can remember what the hell I was trying to say there, it was, so then the Biden idea was, well, no, we'll weaken Russia by forcing them to fight this strategic defeat in Ukraine. in Eastern Europe, and then they'll be less of a help to China, who ultimately we want to confront. So, but instead that's not working, right? Instead, we just made Russia and China closer than they have been since the 1950s or 60s at least. And Russia's not facing a strategic defeat in Ukraine, but a strategic victory. It's NATO that's facing strategic defeat there. And it's Russia that, at the end of the thing, it's true that they're spending a lot of money on their military to build it up. I don't know what kind of spending they're planning on for the long term. They clearly decided to build up a much larger military force and strengthen their trade relationships with India, China, and other countries throughout Asia, and lessen their dependence on trade with Europe. And so the Biden strategy clearly has not worked, where I think the Trump strategy could have. And, I'm a non-interventionist Ron Paul guy here, but we're just talking about the difference between realists and neocon hawks basically here.
Sure.
And the liberal hawks are with the neocons. But the realists like Mearsheimer and Kissinger, for example, think, no, China's the danger, so we ought to figure out how to accommodate Russian concerns. And see, it's also true, and as I demonstrate in my book, as Putin has explained quite sincerely and credibly over the decades now, that he considers Europe part of Europe, Russia part of Europe. It's not part of Asia. He told Madeleine Albright, hey, eating with Chinese chopsticks is fun and everything, but let's get real. We're white and Christians and part of Europe with you. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically it. We're part of this same tradition with you guys, and we want to be. And, I even quote Joe Biden talking about his European aspirations for Russia. And that was always their outlook. And then so what did Biden end up doing? Kicking them out of Europe and, trying to forge, resulting in some form of major break between Europe and Russia and their new turn to the East. So you have a guy like Vance is, I guess, he calls himself a realist. There's a thing, it's very tedious, full of Michelle Goldberg quotes, etc. But there's a thing at the Times today where they talk with Ross Douthat. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he's a conservative that writes for the New York Times. And he's a friend of Vance. He knows him really well. And he talks about him. He says, this guy's not a Buchananite paleoconservative. He is a realist, interventionist, but on some things, not others, etc. like that. Like, that's what you need to know right there. He's been on the Tom Woods show, but he is not Tom Woods.
Well, speaking of that, because I know that a lot of this material is going to be in your forthcoming book. So I had mentioned to you before we got started today that I, to this day, still get people that message me every week that say our favorite episodes you ever did, particularly of the episodes you've done with Scott Horton, are the ones where you guys talked about Star Wars for like 2.5 hours. And it was so perfect that ended up being our Thanksgiving episode, because of course everyone knows the Star Wars Thanksgiving special is the best one. But with that said, you said to me, I said to you, hey, this is doing numbers. We should do this again. And you said, I got to finish my book first. You even quit Twitter again so you could finish your book. So let everybody know, how are we looking on the book?
Oh, man. Well, the good news is I got it up to 1,400 pages and then stopped and started cutting it back down again. And I'm now at about 1130 something. And I've gone ahead and brought on the great Will Porter to help me edit the thing. Because one, he's a great editor, and two, he knows the subject matter really well. And so even the stuff in there that he didn't know, he learns it on the first try because he understands all the other context around it. So it's fine. I'm sure he'll end up probably helping correct me on things that I got wrong in some places too. I would not doubt. So we're working on it, and I still will be adding. I still have more research to do, and more things are happening all the time and everything. So I still will be adding to it. But the major mission now is to try to find ways to go nuts with the cuts and bring the size of the thing way down. So I don't know. That's the goal, to try to get it down to a reasonable length for you. That's what we're working on now. So I did overdo it. But then on the other hand, you need to know about the vaudeville coup of 2016, or else you won't know about it. So it's all in there. So although I'm going to try to find a way to shrink it all down.
Well, on that note, before we run out of time completely, I know, as I've mentioned, it is fundraising season over at the Libertarian Institute. So give everybody your sales pitch for why they got to get out their Sears cards and go to libertarianinstitute.org.
Sure. Man, I thought we were going to talk Star Wars for another 2 hours.
No, that's the next time. That's Thanksgiving. That's
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. No. What was the question? The Institute?
Yeah, the sales pitch for Libertarian Institute. Everybody's got to go give them some money.
Yeah. Well, listen, the first thing is I just got a great group of guys. It's the best thing in the world to brag about is I've just, like I always said about my radio show, I'm not really that great of a host or question asker guy, but man, do I have a great taste in guests. And it's the same thing here with the Institute is I've just invited a really great group of guys and one great gal, Lori Calhoun, to be part of the Institute. And we've got, Ted Galen Carpenter, who was Cato's best guy, writes for us now. We got Jim Bovard from also the New York Post and who's written so many great books. We've got Sheldon Richman, libertarian legend, an author and writer on all aspects of libertarianism. And then we've got this whole, Tommy, our philosopher, is still same age, I guess, but younger than us. We have this whole generation of guys, most famously Keith Knight, Kyle Anzalone, Connor Freeman, and then Hunter Durensis, Patrick McFarlane. And we've just added a bunch of new fellows, including Bill Bupert, who is an expert on really debunking counterinsurgency warfare because it's stupid and doesn't work. And he's an expert, just incredible historian on stuff, the Chasing Ghosts podcast and writing on our blog a bunch. And then we've got Jeremy R. Hammond, who is the Libertarian Movement's foremost expert on the Israel-Palestine conflict and author of Obstacle to Peace. Danny Sanchez from the Foundation for Economic Education is now with us too as a fellow. We made him our Murray N. Rothbard fellow. And Tom Edlum is our William Norman Grigg fellow. He is really Will's kind of protege and good friend from back in their John Birch days, back in the early 2000s, late 90s and early 2000s. And he's an economist, Austrian school economist, and a brilliant writer and analyst. And then we just brought on Joe Solis Mullins. We've been running him for a while, but we've gone ahead and made him a fellow now as well. And so I don't know what to say. We got great articles by all of these great libertarian thinkers and analysts all day, every day. And 5, I guess it is, great podcasts in our kind of collective podcast feed that we have there. And we publish 14 books and have, mine is upcoming, Provoked, How Washington Started the New Cold War with Russia and the Catastrophe in Ukraine. But Keith Knight is working on 2 more himself. We got William Van Wagenen, who is America's, and look, there are a lot of people who are really good on Syria. I don't want to sell anyone short, but William Van Wagenen is America's best guy on Obama's dirty war in Syria, period. And he's our guy at the Institute, and we're publishing that book. It's our next book. It'll be coming out very soon. And on and on like that. We just have so much great stuff going on at the Institute. And, the energy is with us and with the libertarian movement now. And we got the next generation of leaders of the movement. And all the money really just goes straight to payroll and paying per article for our writers and to my brand new truck. No, I'm just kidding. My truck is 29 years old. It goes to publishing books and paying the payroll, and that's it. We don't pay rent on any giant office building or anything. I'm just trying to help these people be able to sustain their effort to produce libertarian materials for the world. And I'm proud to say that I keep hearing from people that the Libertarian Institute is where they found libertarianism, that we've been around long enough now that there's a whole new generation of people here that they're getting it here first. And so very proud of that. And of course, we're closely associated with antiwar.com and a lot of our employees overlap, including me. But we're doing things a bit different over there. So anyway, that's the pitch. And you get great books as kickbacks, as tokens of our appreciation for your generosity in supporting our 501c3 organization. And especially for any of you Bitcoin zillionaires out there who could afford to do without a few tens of thousands of dollars, we'd really appreciate some of those gigantic donations. The little ones we appreciate absolutely, but it takes the big ones to get us through. So for people out there who that is within range, I'd like you to consider it. And that's all at libertarianinstitute.org/donate. And thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. Again, that is libertarianinstitute.org. All right, Scott, we're going to get you out of here with this one. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to try to get you to set the date. What do you think about making it a tradition? We'll do our next Star Wars expose in November. What do you think?
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to do it. Guys, we're going to be back. Wrap up the show right after this commercial break. Don't go away.
If you're enjoying tonight's show, consider supporting the program by becoming a member of our Patreon. That's over at patreon.com/Alan Mosley.
Like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Alan Mosley TV. You can follow me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/Alan Mosley TV. Subscribe to our YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Alan Mosley TV. But if you're more of a listener than a watcher, get us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. Thanks to Spotify. It's Too Late with Alan Mosley or Alan Mosley TV. But really, if you think about it, we're done with Facebook. So you actually don't go to facebook.com/Alan Mosley TV because that's gone.
Don't go to Twitter.
And Twitter is X. So don't say what you just said. Jesus, Twitter still works. You can go to twitter.com and it goes to X, but it's called. Yeah. I'm just saying we could update the graphic. They have to go to Twitter because that's it. We're on Twitter. You have to go to Twitter for viewer mail. You have to go to Twitter for announcements. That's it because we're done with Facebook. Facebook's gone forever. So
screw them.
The people who are all sitting around saying, "What happened to the show? What happened to viewer mail?" Well, the reason we left Facebook is because Facebook shadow banned us like 6 years ago. And if you're wondering why you didn't see any of the announcements about us leaving Facebook, there you go. That's why we left Facebook. If you think about it, that's the weird irony of if they throttle my traffic so that you don't see what I say, and then I make an announcement telling you I'm leaving Facebook, but you don't see what I say, then how would you even know? See what I'm saying?
Real fans will search you out.
Yeah. Well, Ryan was over there on Twitter. I noticed he had a Russian flag emoji in his handle. Yeah.
Bold move.
Yeah. He's he's stepping out, you know what I'm saying? All right. Do you have a final thought, Dave?
Man, Scott Horton's awesome.
Isn't he though?
Anytime he comes on. It's always a great conversation. I love seeing him on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good show. We did good under the circumstances.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't really rose above.
I don't really want to do an after party.
Really?
Like, it's hot. I'm really tired. Tomorrow's Thursday. God damn it.
Well, we don't have to.
Yeah, I know, but there's just the goons in chat will be like, "No after party? ?
Yeah.
Just
let's short one.
Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of It's Too Late, and we will see you next week.
There we go. Get this over with.
I'm actually irrationally angry that I'm having to hit the buttons.
No, I understand. It's uncomfortable for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the idea.
I also haven't updated the credit scroll in a while either. We've had more people join, and I haven't added their name yet, which is super bad. But I also think some of those people that are there are dead.
Oh.
So we should, I don't know. We're gonna have to have like an in memoriam section of this fucking.
It's been going on too long.
Yeah. Boy, you and me both, Fred.